Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Friend Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Larimer, and today I'm joined by the venerable Terence Corrigan. Terence, how are you doing?
That is, how you doing, Nick?
And the wise and benevolent Sarah Gant. Sarah, how are you?
I'm still benevolent. I'm not sure about the wisdom thing.
I know the feeling. I didn't sleep so well last night, so I'm a little bit uh, unfocused, but we'll try to power through nonetheless. Um, so let's start off with our first story. And that is, of course, South Africa's favorite transport minister. Well, he's also South Africa's only transport minister, really. Not known as one of South Africa's foremost intellectuals, Fikile Mbalula, who is insisting that he needs to educate the nation with regards to the driver's license situation. So there has been a scandal going on for a little while now that South Africa's one printing machine for driver's licenses is I think I'm not actually sure whether it's currently broken or whether it was recently broken and is being repaired overseas. The point is, there's only one printer for driver's licenses in the country, and it needed to be repaired in Germany because apparently it couldn't be repaired in South Africa. And as a result, there is a huge backlog of 400,000 applications for driver's licenses currently outstanding. And very justifiably, even in the comments of the show of the last couple of days, people have been taking shots at the transport minister, who's, of course, supposed to ensure that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. And so, responding to some of these criticisms, he recently said that he was insisting he would need to educate the country on exactly the printer used and that it was quite an impressive machine. And so he wanted to show the media the driver's license regime in this country and the printing system and everything, and then he believes that everyone will be very impressed and leave him alone. He also said that the department was introducing a new card machine which wouldn't need to be repaired overseas, and that once cabinet approves that, the new machines were going to come. Apparently, the printing system they're using has been implemented in the late 90s and has been in use ever since. Seems like another example of a government department not working, but this is kind of sort of interesting because it's got this aspect of needing foreign expertise. Terence, let me start with you. What do you make of this, and what do you make of the minister's threat to educate the nation?
The minister is a national treasure. I'll say he's like he's sort of unique in in the cabinet, in that he could probably find an alternative career as a stand-up comic. That's his whole persona, razzmatazz. And a couple of about 2 years ago, there was an aviation show, and he went on TV and he said something about how he is higgy there. And we're at the Daily Friend promised to keep tabs on the higginess. I don't know, maybe we've seen some indication of that. Yeah, on a more serious note, how on earth do you get to a situation where you can't issue a driver's license? It's
right. This is my thought. Right, if the system is so great, then how come there's a backlog of 400,000?
Yeah, someone in our comments said something about bringing the technician over. If we're using technology that's specific, surely we can't just throw in another 2 million a year, which I'm sure is chump change for our big spending administration, to have a German technician living in Pretoria, so that when it breaks down, he's there, and for the rest of it he can surf the net and watch Netflix and whatever. But yeah, I think what this says is much more just about the sad state of the country, where everything seems to have been reduced to endless patching and trying to deal with things after the fact. If indeed the minister can educate us, I'd be very interesting to see. But the fact remains that we do have the small matter of 400,000 lapsed licenses, and this is really basic stuff. It doesn't require a mighty, ethical, capable, developmental state to do it. It requires someone to go in the morning, switch the machine on, and put in whatever information you need to. This is simple stuff.
So
I don't know. That's all I have to say about it, as far as Gump once said.
No, I think that might be all there is to say, really, which is why I think I'm putting Sarah in a difficult spot here. But Sarah, you've recently had a bit of a run-in with the driver's license system, I believe. I have to renew mine this year, which I'm not looking forward to at all. And I know that the booking system in Gauteng, at least, which has gone all online, especially during COVID, has not been the easiest thing to navigate. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, just with reference to the booking system, my experience in the last year or so is that almost no government website, whether provincial or national, is working properly. I mean, I try to apply for a passport, and you go through Home Affairs. And then you get to the point where it says, you everything very good. You put in your OTP, but you never get one. So you just never get one.
It's like that horrifying feeling when you go onto a government website and then it says, warning, you need to have a browser compatible with Internet Explorer 5 or higher to continue. Oh, no.
No. The thing is, I suppose, as we would probably have some benefit from being educated, except we don't care. We just want our driver's licenses. I've applied for one. I lost mine. The process actually went quite smoothly. I made all sorts of efforts around it, but I had to collect it in 8 weeks' time, which is at the end of the month. And I can probably be damn sure that there isn't going to be a driver's license waiting for me. So I have a temporary driver's license, which hopefully it will last 6 months, and before the 6 months is up, I'll get it. But a few years ago, I had to renew mine, and there was a strike on, and I don't know I assume it was a strike affecting the production of the machinery, so which is what affected it. But it did sound sadly that the workers had grounds for striking because they were being managed by somebody from hell. But the point is, it took me 6 months to get a driver's license then, and it's the sign of something that's fairly, really routine and mundane. I mean, I may be totally ignorant about driver's license machinery, but surely 4 around the country. I mean, otherwise, go to minute print and get something.
Right, having any system with a single point of failure is not great. Even if it is the world's most wonderful printing machine, if it's the only one, you're going to be setting yourself up for trouble.
Absolutely. It just from a private sector point of view, it's mystifying.
And this brings me to a point I've been thinking about a lot recently, and since we're going short, I will take the opportunity to pontificate a bit. But it's that we really have entered a kind of period of government by personal contact and WhatsApp, because none of the official channels work properly. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stories we can sort of point to. Just the simple act of trying to get a petition submitted to a government office, as Gabriel talked about on the show yesterday, is not going great. Terence, you've been trying to get particular information out of a ministry yourself, and there's just sort of, it's as though the ministry doesn't exist. It's like sort of
dread silence from its hilltop eyrie. I think there's something in Tolkien about that.
Right.
No, I've also been trying to get a death certificate for my brother for 3 years.
Right. And it really seems now that the only way you get access to governance is either by getting some kind of court order, or alternatively by knowing someone and having their WhatsApp number and being able to message them independently. My dad's an MP, and he tried to lay assault charges against someone from another political party recently. Doesn't help that he's an MP. It doesn't help that he got the same treatment that the rest of the public gets, which is nothing. Yeah. Anyway, any final thoughts on this, Terence, before we move on?
No, think about these things, you just get depressed.
Well, I think that's a pretty good summary of it. Sorry, anything to add?
Just to say that obviously the one of the huge problems the government has across the board is forward planning.
Right.
Forward, backwards, sideways, the planning doesn't matter. It's just
any planning.
Yeah, so let's not get started on the railway system. Anyway, so enough whinging about that. Let's go on to our next story of today, and that is the ANC leader in the Western Cape, MPL Cameron Dugmore, has said that he is now on a mission to unmask the Democratic Alliance for what he says are double standards, not practicing what it preaches with regards to cadre deployment. So he wrote to the DA's provincial leader, Albert Fritz, demanding the minutes of party meetings where he says instructions were sent to municipalities governed by the DA on whom to employ and whom not to. He goes on to detail a specific incident in the George municipality where he says that a particular candidate was passed over because of their race. And he also claims that he has a letter from the DA saying that all appointments must be signed off by the federal executive of the DA. The response... So he also then went on to say that the DA's current plan was to employ as many white males as possible and reverse employment equity. That was the exact quote. The response from the DA provincial leader was, "I don't even think Cameron Dugmore deserves any comment. My personal view is I cannot legitimize his comments with a response. He's clutching at straws and should not be entertained." So pretty flat denial there. But this is a sort of question. I mean, we do see occasionally people who were DA MPs or whatever sometimes end up in administrations of cities and cities. I know that, for example, Mike Moriarty, who is an MPL, is now the chief of staff of the new Joburg mayor, and there are others as well. So let me go to you, Sarah. Is the DA guilty of cadre deployment? What are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, let's put it this way. I think cadre deployment has a very specific connotation because I think most governments, people within the ruling party, there will be occasions when they go and perform a certain function.
Right. This has been the ANC's defense of cadre deployment. It says, they do this in America. Well, what's wrong with us doing it?
Except there's one problem. The ANC deployed cadres, and we now don't have a railway system, and we've lost $1 trillion in state capture. And that's really the issue. Is it's one thing putting someone in place that actually has the wherewithal to do the job and doesn't cause us huge amounts of loss. And it's another thing completely to have an actual policy that puts people in place by virtue of solely their membership of a political party or their race. And so in the absence of any evidence one way or the other to really show something detrimental to the populace in occasions when it's happened, I can't get excited.
Terence, what do you make of this? Do you think that the DA is guilty of cadre deployment, as Cameron Dugmore suggests?
I think that there quite possibly is a case to be answered. But look, I must say, there's Minister Razmataz and there's Cameron Dugmore. Both, although frankly, I'd pay money to see Fikile Mbalula. I wouldn't pay money to see Cameron Dugmore. But yeah, I'm sure that the DA has had its fingers in some pies where they might best have been kept out. But I also think this is the politics of the sandpit. No, you did it, so I did it, so it's okay. It's this is kindergarten reasoning. If Cameron Dugmore is saying that the DA is doing this, is he saying that it's okay because the ANC has legitimated it, or is he saying that it's bad and therefore what the ANC is doing bad? Then maybe he should direct his criticism closer to home. I don't know. And frankly, I'm not sure. You'd probably take Jim Carrey or something to work that one out, or Danny DeVito, or maybe we could hand it to Mr. Mbalula. I think though that there is a difference, if only in terms of reach, between a majority party and at times a near super majority party that can make, quote, recommendations on judges, and someone who can exercise authority around the city manager of a rural municipality in the Cape. These things are not comparable in scale or in impact. And look, I have noticed that the release of those minutes by the ANC, and also some of the oblique comments in that first in the first part of the Zondo Commission report, have forced a lot of people who I'd say are otherwise perhaps broadly sympathetic with the ANC, or at least ideologically on side with it, to confront something very, very uncomfortable. And the way they've sort of tried to do it is by there was a thing in the Daily Maverick about, yes, well, Helen Ziller is like such a, what Cartman might say that rhymes with itch, and this is a South African thing, not an ANC thing. And there was Rebecca Davis, an otherwise not bad article where she said, yes, it's controversial, and maybe the DA also has a case to answer. The thing is, I think that the ANC has just hammered the state far harder, and while we shouldn't let the DA and its picadillos go, just understand that at the moment is kind of relatively minor league vandalism of a back window of a factory, as opposed to just torching the whole building. Which is ironic that I mentioned that, and it's completely Freudian.
I have done so.
I didn't mean that, folks.
It really does seem like the kind of the proof is in the what really makes catered appointment, of course, as you guys say, stick out, is when it leads to this sort of state failure, because the people there are entirely party opportunists. And you'd think that the ANC would have uncovered incredibly blatant examples of the DA doing the same thing if they really were, because they've been in opposition for a while, or maybe they're just as good as being an opposition party as they are being a government. So maybe I shouldn't expect too much from that.
Look, I do think on that score, the ANC in the Western Cape has shown itself to be an absolutely unmitigated disaster. They have never adapted to being on the opposition benches. I remember for like the first 10 years, they strutted around and pontificated as though they had somehow been tricked out of office, like Jack and the Beanstalk paying too much for his magic beans or something. But they didn't realize actually there's been an election. Sorry guys, you lost. Now you got to like adapt. And I think now they've kind of realized, well, actually they have been voted out, but it's like, what do we do with this? Yeah.
Sarah, your thoughts on this sort of tension between political appointments and performance stuff?
I think the description of it being sandpit politics is pretty much covers it. It's just, as I say, what's interesting is the lack of detail. If you want to really hit a party in Parliament, bring out some facts and let the the rest of us go ooh ah gasp. And until we go ooh ah gasp, I'm going to read something else over my cornflakes.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe if you see Cameron Dugmore, you can go ooh ah gasp. No, but
anyway.
like I say, Fikile Mbalula is a national treasure. Sense of humor.
No, I agree.
If we can't get good governance, let's get a laugh.
Fikile Mbalula is a lot of fun to follow, because he does sort of speak his mind, so to speak. Anyway, so I think let's move to what I think will be our last topic for today, and that is about the state of trust in public institutions, and particularly how democracies match up against autocracies. So according to a survey by the Eldman Trust Barometer, which has for 20 years been doing surveys of people around the world and asking them their trust in government institutions, public institutions, has found that the trust during the coronavirus pandemic in government institutions has pretty much collapsed everywhere. And my anecdotal personal experiences definitely seems to be true. Both people left and right are annoyed with government's response to coronavirus, usually for the opposite reason, which perhaps suggests something about what the cause is. But after surveying 36,000 people in 28 countries in November of last year, they found that public trust in Germany was down 7% to 46%. This is trust in public institutions and government. In Australia, it was down 6 points to 53%. In Netherlands, it was down to 57%. In South Korea, it was down to 42%. In the United States, it was down to 43%. By contrast, countries like China had 83% trust in public institutions, which was up 11%. 76% of the United Arab Emirates, which is, of course, a monarchy and therefore not a democracy. Well, they don't allow any sort of voting or anything really. And Thailand, which I think is currently sort of ruled by a weird mix of a military junta and a monarch, had public trust in its institutions at 66%. And a lot of people surveyed were also asked if they thought their families would be better off in 5 years' time, with many people, only around 20 to 40% in most democracies, saying yes. In Japan, it was only 15%. So they're really pessimistic about the future. Whereas 2/3 of Chinese people and 80% of Indians believe they would be better off in 5 years. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. Terence, let me start with you. Why do people in autocracies trust their government more?
Well, I think that it's probably country specific, but let me say about China. China is a highly controlled society, and I think that even conducting this sort of research is probably difficult. Hi, I'm an intimidating stranger with a clipboard. I'd like to know your opinions of the government that monitors you through its social credit system. Are you happy? Do you trust it? Okay, but I'm not a pollster. I don't know exactly how they conduct this, but I suspect that when your ability to get countervailing opinions is highly restricted, as it is in a country like China, and where the government hinges its claim to legitimacy on its performance as opposed to its claim to represent your sectarian interests or as a site of contestation. The essential bargain is you don't have freedom, but you have security. And the Chinese are very, very emphatic about this, and that is a kind of their export to the rest of the world. I've spoken to Chinese diplomats who are unapologetic about it. One guy said to me, "Look, let's face it, people don't really care about their about civil liberties and freedoms and democracy. They want to be fed, they want to be clothed, they want to have a place to stay, and then maybe we can talk about that." Now that I think when that's the message you get over and over again, and where the environment is consciously tailored to restrict thinking of an alternative, that's the way you'll go. I understand that places like the UAE, although they are in a sense more open, still are structured in such a way that
there.
not a lot of freedom, but more contact with the outside world. Whether you're dealing with Americans who are working in service industries there, or you're going off to the French Riviera to go shopping, whatever. The point is, though, that I understand that a lot of their legitimacy is also drawn from the idea that if you are a citizen, the state takes care of you. If you're some sort of Pakistani guest worker, or apparently a Palestinian accent doesn't go down very well, you're out of luck. It's not the greatest place in the world to be, but there's work, and you can take it or leave it. And I think that Western democracy, and here I'm talking particularly about, let's say, the core democracies of the world, have run into an element of exhaustion. The post World War II, I imagine that many people in places like Holland or Denmark, or for that matter even the United States, who actually really appreciated things like the vote, the right to express oneself, that's become pretty much blah now. You have entire university courses dedicated to showing people how badly off they are. One of the probably the most materially privileged generation ever.
Right. I actually saw a comment made by a YouTuber who travels around the world a lot. He makes videos about countries around the world. And he said when he interviews people from around the world, people from developing nations will say, we have the best hospitality in our country. You must come visit us. You'll be welcomed like family. Things are great. We really want to have you there. Whereas people in developed nations complain about everything, hate everything, and say it's the worst and I'm suffering.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually also interestingly reflected in these polls, finding that the majority of people in China and especially India are really optimistic about the future. But people in the West, particularly China, particularly Japan, seem to have kind of just given up on the future. Sorry, what do you make of that?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by the figures in the West, and however much they've dropped, I think it's partly a healthy sign. It's a healthy sign that people can express negative feelings about the government structures that are involved in their lives. But the other thing I think is important, and I think it's a place like America. The West is so well off. It's never been better off. And the very idea that perhaps economics might make the next generation a little less secure than our generation or the generation before, instead of just sort of, well, we've got to pull together and get things done, there is a lot of whinging and whining and complaining bitterly. And I think that's partly, you can complain about, I mean, you can literally stand outside the House of Commons and tell Boris Johnson to go and stuff himself, and it won't have any consequences. And as long as you have that sort of freedom and you actually benefit in terms of material status, you're going to take the opportunity to whinge and whine. And obviously, a certain pressure has been put on by virtue of COVID. So the length of COVID, the fact that some countries have handled it better than others, some governments have done it, the influence of some of the scientific community being negative and others not being listened to, all of those sorts of things, plus the conspiracy theories that float around, they're great grist to the mill of societies that are comfortable in the fact that they can be critical. And from that point of view, I think it's to be expected in the circumstances. And I think in my sarcastic response to satisfaction in autocracies is, well, yeah, I'm very happy. That's what the president said I am. Therefore, I am.
Reminds me of an old joke about the Soviet Union that I think Ronald Reagan was fond of telling, which is an American and a Soviet are arguing, and the American says, the best thing about my country is I can go right up to the president's desk, pound my fist on it, and say, Mr. President, I don't like the job that you're doing. And the Soviet said, what? You think that's special? I can do exactly the same thing. I can go right into the Kremlin. I can go to the General Secretary of the Communist Party's desk. I can pound my fist on it. I can say, Comrade General Secretary, I don't like the job the President of the United States is doing.
Exactly.
All right. Incidentally, just maybe one comment. One of our viewers has said what the North Koreans would say. That is actually a very interesting question. North Korea, has kind of been, in a way, sealed off as much as it's possible, although a lot of news does get through. But something that that researchers who've worked with North Korean defectors, in other words, people who've left North Korea, people who understand the corruption in the system, they say it's a very, very interesting phenomenon that there's still a great deal of guilt and almost self-loathing about this, that somehow they let their country down. That socialization runs very, very deep. So yeah,
I'll talk. Not everyone living in an autocratic society is just waiting to bloom into a full-blooded liberal, unfortunately.
Right.
And that's perhaps one of the most evil things about autocracy, is that they really do undermine people's
right
freedom and at the core of people's minds. But anyway, before we get too philosophical, we are out of time. So thank you very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to thedailyfriend.co.za to check out all sorts of news, opinion, analysis, all that good stuff. And also check out our other podcasts and stuff that we do, particularly the one I do with Gabriel Krauser, Two Crickets and a Thorn Tree. It's not for everyone. Our episodes recently have been a bit too long. But anyway, we hope they're entertaining. Cool. Well, I'll see everyone around, and we'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.